Ryan Carter sat in the back seat of his sleek sports car, staring out the window, but his mind wasn't really there. Another important meeting awaited him, a partnership discussion that could solidify his company's dominance in the tech industry. But as he glanced at the growing city skyline, Ryan couldn't help but feel a growing emptiness inside. Ryan had it all: money, power, influence. His company, Carter Tech, was a global powerhouse. But despite his success, there was one thing he didn't have: genuine love. He had been surrounded by people all his life, partners, investors, colleagues, but he had never been able to find anyone who truly cared about him for who he was, rather than what he had. After years of building his empire, Ryan was skeptical of every relationship that came his way. He had become convinced that women only loved him for his wealth and status, not for the man he truly was beneath the suits and the headlines. It was a crisp autumn morning when everything changed. Ryan walked into a cafe that he frequented, a small, unassuming place in the heart of the city. He wasn't expecting anything extraordinary, just his usual black coffee, a quick stop to get some work done. But then he saw her. Maya was different from the women Ryan was used to. She was simple, warm, and genuine. She wasn't impressed by his designer clothes or expensive watch. In fact, she didn't seem to care much about the man sitting across from her at all. To Maya, he was just another customer in her cafe. Ryan, of course, couldn't shake the curiosity she stirred within him. He found himself coming back to this cafe more and more, watching her as she moved around the cafe, serving customers with a kind smile, her eyes focused solely on her work. Maya didn't seem to notice Ryan at first, which only added to the intrigue. She wasn't impressed by his wealth or his title, and that made him wonder, was this real? Was this the kind of person he could actually connect with? As the days passed, Ryan found himself returning to the cafe, not just for coffee, but to steal glances at Maya to see if she would acknowledge him. But Maya remained friendly, yet distant. She was polite, but not particularly interested in getting to know him beyond the usual pleasantries. Ryan was torn. For the first time in years, he was intrigued by a woman who wasn't chasing after him for his money or his title. But he couldn't help but wonder, was Maya really interested in him for who he was? Or was she just being polite because she didn't recognize him for who he truly was? Could she really love him, or was she just another person who would eventually find out what he had and disappear? After several visits, Ryan's curiosity about Maya grew. He was unsure of her intentions, so he decided to test her. He would pretend to be someone he wasn't, someone who didn't have the success or the wealth he'd built. He'd strip away the luxuries that came with being Ryan Carter, the CEO of Carter Tech, and see if Maya would still be kind to him. If she was genuine, she wouldn't care about his wealth, right? The next day, Ryan arrived at the cafe, but this time he wore an old hoodie and a pair of jeans that looked like they had seen better days. He traded in his usual luxury car for a beat-up old sedan he'd borrowed from a friend. He had no intention of ordering his usual double-shot espresso or the fancy pastries he'd always indulged in. This time, he was going to play the part of a man who had nothing, just to see how Maya would respond when he walked in. Maya was behind the counter, serving a customer. Ryan stood at the door for a moment, watching her work. There was something about the way she moved her focus, her dedication, that made him feel ... different. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but there was a peace in her demeanor that Ryan had never found in his fast-paced world. When Maya saw him, she offered him a small smile, the same friendly smile she gave to every customer. "What can I get for you today?" she asked, not noticing the difference in his appearance. Just a black coffee, Ryan said. His voice casual, but there was an edge of nervousness he couldn't hide. He wasn't used to feeling this uncertain about a simple interaction. Maya nodded and quickly made his coffee. As she handed it to him, their hands brushed. For a brief second, Ryan felt a spark, but he quickly pushed it aside. He was here to test her, not to indulge in feelings he couldn't afford. "Thanks," Ryan said, forcing a smile. "How's the day going?" "Busy as always," Maya replied, her eyes lighting up a little. "But it's good. I like the rush." Ryan took his coffee and sat in a corner, watching her as she continued to work. He couldn't help but feel a connection to her, despite the fact that she had no idea who he really was. She was genuine, something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Over the next few days, Ryan returned to the cafe, continuing his charade of being an ordinary man. But something began to change. Maya, despite her initial indifference, started to seem ... aware. She would ask him about his day more often, take extra time to chat with him, and even remember little details about his life, things that showed she was paying attention. It wasn't the flattery of someone trying to win his approval. It felt real, and for the first time in a long while, Ryan began to wonder if Maya really did care about him. One afternoon, Maya approached his table while he was reading through some work emails on his phone. "So, you come here every day, but I've never asked, what do you do for a living?" she asked, her tone curious but not prying. Ryan froze for a moment, debating how to answer. He could lie again, or he could be honest. For some reason, the thought of lying to Maya made him feel uncomfortable. He decided to be vague. "I'm in tech," Ryan said, avoiding further explanation. Maya raised an eyebrow, but didn't push. "Tech, huh? I guess that explains the laptop you always have with you. Sounds like an interesting job." Ryan felt a pang of guilt. He had tested her, but now it seemed like she was the one who was testing him, waiting for him to tell the truth. The days following Ryan's decision to continue his charade felt like a whirlwind. He kept returning to the cafe, each time slipping deeper into his fake persona. Maya, in her unassuming way, began to notice the small changes in him. She hadn't questioned him outright. She was too polite, too observant to make it obvious. But Ryan could tell she was starting to notice. Her questions, her small glances, they were becoming more probing. Ryan tried to brush it off, but deep down, he couldn't ignore the growing bond he felt with her. Despite the fact that he was pretending to be someone he wasn't, Maya still treated him with kindness, as though she saw something good in him, even in his most vulnerable state. She didn't look at him like he was just another rich businessman. And for that, Ryan was both grateful and terrified. One Thursday afternoon, Ryan arrived at the cafe earlier than usual, wanting to get some work done before his meeting later in the day. Maya was there, of course, moving behind the counter with her usual ease, greeting customers with a smile and keeping the place running smoothly. But today, as she made his coffee, Ryan noticed something different in her demeanor. She wasn't as casual as usual. When she handed him his cup, her fingers brushed against his, and for a brief moment, he saw a flicker of something in her eyes, something beyond simple friendliness. He couldn't quite place it, but he knew it wasn't the same as before. "Ryan," Maya said, her voice softer than usual, "can I ask you something?" Ryan paused, setting his coffee down. "Of course, what's up?" She glanced around, ensuring no one else was paying attention, then leaned in slightly. You've been coming here for weeks now, and every time you're wearing the same things. I know you've told me you're in tech, but it's just ... different. You don't really talk about what you do. I mean, most people are proud of what they do, right?" Ryan froze. Her words were innocent enough, but they carried an edge. She wasn't accusing him, but she was questioning him. He smiled, but there was an edge of tension in it. "I just like to keep things simple. No need to bring work into my personal time, you know." Maya's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "I get it. But don't you think it's kind of weird? I mean, you're always here in these worn-out clothes, acting like you're just ... a regular guy. But I've seen your type before. The quiet ones who sit in corners. You're not fooling me, Ryan." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. The weight of her words hung in the air, and for the first time, he realized how carefully Maya had been watching him. She wasn't blind to his facade. She saw through it, but wasn't saying anything ... Yet, you're wrong. "Maya," Ryan said quickly, his tone defensive, perhaps a little too quickly. "I just prefer a quiet life. That's all." Maya didn't respond immediately, but she raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. She gave a small shrug and smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes this time. "All right, Ryan, if you say so." The next few days were filled with a subtle tension that neither of them acknowledged outright. Ryan found himself constantly thinking about Maya's words. He couldn't shake the feeling that she was onto him, and worse, that she was beginning to lose trust in him. What if she figured out that he wasn't who he said he was? What if she rejected him because of it? Meanwhile, Maya continued to work as usual, but the unease was becoming palpable. She wasn't stupid. She knew something wasn't right. The more she thought about it, the more the pieces didn't fit. Ryan was hiding something, and despite his charm and easy smiles, Maya wasn't sure she could continue pretending like everything was fine. She had learned to recognize the signs of a man hiding something. She had seen it before, with customers who came into the cafe pretending to be someone they weren't. But Ryan ... he was different. He wasn't asking for her attention, wasn't showing off. He was subtle, withdrawn, but there was something compelling about him. And yet, no matter how much she wanted to ignore it, Maya knew that she couldn't keep pretending she didn't see the cracks in his facade one evening. After closing time, Maya decided she couldn't wait any longer. She needed answers. So, when she saw Ryan sitting alone in the cafe, nursing a cup of coffee, she walked up to him. "Ryan, we need to talk," she said, her voice firm but gentle. Ryan looked up at her, startled. "Maya, is everything okay?" "Sit down," she said, pulling out the chair across from him. Ryan hesitated, but finally did as she asked. "What's on your mind?" he asked, trying to hide the tension in his voice. "Stop pretending," Maya said, her eyes locking with his. "You've been coming here for weeks, acting like you don't have a care in the world, but I know you're hiding something. And I don't know why you feel the need to do that, but it's not working anymore." Ryan swallowed hard. "I don't know what you mean," he said, but his voice wavered slightly. "Cut the act." "Ryan," Maya said, her voice quiet but firm, "I don't care about your money, your status, or your career. I care about the real youth person behind the facade. But if you keep hiding, if you keep pretending, I'm not sure I can trust you." Ryan's heart raced as he looked at her. The walls he had carefully constructed around himself were crumbling, and it scared him more than anything else. For the first time, he realized that Maya wasn't just asking for him to be honest with her. She was asking for him to be honest with himself. Ryan couldn't sleep that night. Maya's words kept echoing in his mind. Stop pretending. He had spent so much of his life constructing a mask of facade of wealth, success, and control that the thought of letting it all crumble felt like the end of everything he'd worked for. But as he lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his apartment, he realized that keeping up this lie was costing him something far more important than his image. It was costing him the chance at something real, something genuine with Maya the next day. Ryan decided he couldn't continue with the charade. He had to come clean, even if it meant risking everything. Maya was different. She had seen through him, and while he wasn't sure what he was feeling, he knew that he couldn't lose her. Maya, meanwhile, spent the night going over everything in her mind. After confronting Ryan, she had hoped that he would finally open up to her. But as she walked away from the cafe, she wasn't sure if she had done the right thing. She didn't want to lose Ryan. He was different from the men she'd met before. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized she couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. She wasn't interested in his money, and she wasn't interested in playing games. If Ryan couldn't be honest with her, then they had no future together. But as much as she wanted to move on, there was a part of her that couldn't let go. She wasn't sure what it was, but there was something about Ryan that kept pulling her back. It wasn't just his wealth or status, it was something deeper. Something she couldn't quite name, but something that made her want to know him more. That afternoon, Ryan called Maya. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, but he couldn't back out now. He had to tell her the truth. "Maya, I need to see you," he said when she answered the phone, his voice tinged with urgency. "Can we meet?" Maya hesitated for a moment, but then agreed. "I'll meet you in an hour." Ryan arrived at the cafe, his heart pounding in his chest. This was it, the moment where everything could change, for better or worse. As he walked in, he saw Maya sitting at their usual table, her arms crossed over her chest, a determined look on her face. She didn't even have to say anything. Ryan could tell that she was still upset with him. "I'm sorry," Ryan began, sitting down across from her. "I've been lying to you, and I can't do that anymore. I'm not who you think I am." Maya's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice cool but cautious. Ryan took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "I'm not just some regular guy. I'm not the person I've been pretending to be. I'm the CEO of Carter Tech. I've built a multi-million-dollar company. I wasn't being honest with you because I wanted to see if you would still care about me without all of this." He gestured vaguely to the cafe around them. Without the status and the money. Maya sat in silence for a long moment, processing his words. Her heart ached, but she didn't show it. She had suspected something was off, but hearing it from him, in his own words, stung more than she had imagined. "So, everything. All this time, you've been testing me?" Maya asked, her voice low, almost disbelieving. "You thought I would care more about your money than about you?" Ryan looked down, his face flushed with shame. "I never wanted to hurt you, Maya. I just... I've been hurt before. And I didn't want to get too close, only to have it all fall apart. I thought if I pretended to be someone else, someone without money, maybe I could figure out if you really cared about me, or just what I could give you." Maya shook her head slowly, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. "You think I'm some kind of gold digger? That's why you did this?" No, Ryan said quickly, his voice filled with regret. It's not that. I just don't know how to trust anyone anymore, Maya, and I didn't know if you would love me, the real me, if you knew who I really was. Maya sighed deeply, looking away from him. I don't care about your money, Ryan. You've got to understand that I never did. I was just trying to get to know you, the person you are. Not the CEO, but you shut me out, and now I'm not sure what's real anymore. You've kept me at arm's length this whole time. Ryan reached out, but Maya pulled her hand back, holding up a barrier he wasn't sure how to cross. I can't just pretend this didn't happen. It feels like everything was a lie. For the next few moments, there was nothing but silence between them. Ryan's heart was in his throat, the words he wanted to say stuck in his chest. He had pushed Maya too far, and now he was terrified that he had lost her forever. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Maya spoke. I don't know if I can just forget what you've done, she said quietly, her voice shaking with emotion. But I need some time, Ryan. I can't keep doing this. I need to know that you're not just going to keep pretending. If you want to be with me, you need to be real with me. All the way. No more games. Ryan nodded, his eyes filled with regret. I understand. I'm sorry. And I'll prove to you that I can be honest. I'll prove that I'm not just the man behind the money. I want you to see me for who I really am. Maya stood up, grabbing her coat. I hope you mean that, she said softly, before turning to leave. Ryan sat in the cafe, watching her walk away. The weight of his actions was sinking in, and he knew he had a long road ahead if he wanted to make things right. But for the first time, he felt like he was willing to do whatever it took to make things right with Maya. As he left the cafe, he realized one thing for certain: he couldn't hide behind his wealth anymore. It was time to be real. It was time to trust. The following days were some of the hardest Ryan had ever faced. After his confrontation with Maya, he had tried to throw himself into work, but his mind kept drifting back to her. Every time he sat in a meeting, every time he made a decision for the company, he couldn't shake the image of Maya walking out of the cafe. Her heartbroken expression etched in his mind. It was a feeling he wasn't used to, the feeling of regret, of realizing that he had lost something precious. It wasn't just about losing her trust. It was about losing the one person who had seen through his wealth, his status, and cared about him for who he was beneath all of that. He had spent so many years in control of everything, thinking that being the CEO of a billion-dollar company meant having everything in life. But now he realized that there was something far more valuable that he had neglected all along: vulnerability and trust. Maya, on the other hand, was struggling with her own emotions. After the confrontation, she had spent the weekend keeping her distance, trying to make sense of everything. She had always prided herself on being strong, on being able to navigate through life without needing anyone. But Ryan had thrown that all into disarray. She didn't know if she could trust him again. She didn't know if she could forgive him for the games he'd played with her heart. But there was something about Ryan that she couldn't shake. Despite everything, she knew he wasn't a bad person. He had just made a terrible mistake. But trust, Maya knew, was not something that could be easily repaired. It was Tuesday afternoon when Ryan finally decided to take the first step toward making things right. He couldn't wait any longer. He had spent enough time wondering what might happen if he changed, but now he had to prove it. He had to show Maya that he was serious, that he was willing to do whatever it took to earn back her trust. He sent her a message, asking if they could meet. The message was simple, but the weight of it was heavy. He didn't know if she would agree, but he had to try. Maya, I know I've hurt you. I've made mistakes, and I can't take back what I did. But I want to show you that I can be better, that I can be real with you. Can we meet? Ryan stared at the screen, waiting. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, but he couldn't bring himself to type anymore. He didn't want to make excuses. He didn't want to say anything that would lessen the pain he'd caused. He just wanted to be honest. After a few agonizing minutes, Maya's reply came through. I'll meet you, but we need to talk. About everything. Ryan felt a rush of relief flood over him. This was it. He had one chance to prove himself, and he wasn't going to waste it. They met at a small park near the city, the same place where they had shared their first real conversation weeks ago. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the park, but the air between them was heavy with unspoken words. Ryan arrived first, his heart pounding in his chest. He had no idea what to expect from Maya, but he knew one thing: he was ready to face the consequences of his actions. No matter what, when Maya arrived, she didn't smile. She didn't greet him with the usual warmth he had come to expect from her. She simply nodded, then gestured for him to sit. The silence between them was thick, suffocating. Ryan cleared his throat. Maya, I don't know where to start. I've hurt you, and I can't take that back. But I want you to know that I'm not the same person I was when we first met. I've learned so much from this. From you, and I'm sorry for testing you, for lying to you. That was wrong, and I'll never do that again. Maya met his eyes, but there was a guarded look in her gaze. I don't know if I can trust you again, Ryan, she said, her voice quiet but firm. You've hurt me in a way I didn't expect, and I don't want to feel like I'm just another challenge for you to fix. I don't want to be a project. I need someone who is already whole, not someone who's constantly testing me to see if I'll love them. Ryan felt a pang of guilt twist in his chest. He had never intended to make her feel like a project, but in hindsight, that's exactly what he had done. He had tested her love, instead of accepting it. I didn't mean to make you feel like that, Ryan said, his voice shaking slightly. I've spent so much of my life hiding from everything, including myself. I didn't trust anyone, Maya. But I'm learning now. I'm learning how to be vulnerable, how to trust, and I want to trust you. Maya looked at him for a long time, her expression unreadable. The silence between them stretched on, until she finally spoke. I'm not sure I can forgive you right now, she said softly, but I'm willing to try. I want to see if you're really ready to be the person you're claiming to be. And I need you to understand something, Ryan. If you want me in your life, I need you to be completely honest with me. No more games. Ryan nodded, his eyes filled with sincerity. I promise. No more games. No more pretending. They sat in silence for a while, neither of them speaking, but the weight between them had lifted slightly. Ryan knew that Maya wasn't ready to fully trust him yet, and he wasn't asking for that. But this was a starter small step towards something real. When they stood to leave, Maya turned to him and said, Let's take it slow, okay? One step at a time. Ryan smiled, feeling a glimmer of hope. I'm willing to take as many steps as it takes, Maya. The following weeks passed by in a delicate dance between Ryan and Maya. Both of them had agreed to take things slow, to rebuild the trust that had been broken. But Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that every step forward might lead to another step back. He had promised Maya that he would be honest with her, but sometimes the weight of his past mistakes felt like a heavy burden, one that he didn't know if he could ever fully escape. Maya, too, found herself in a constant state of uncertainty. She was giving Ryan a chance, but each time she allowed herself to open up to him, there was a lingering fear that he might hurt her again. She had been hurt before, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to trust him fully. But there was something about him that kept pulling her in, something that made her want to believe in the possibility of a future together. It was a Friday evening when Ryan invited Maya to dinner at a small, intimate restaurant that he had always loved. He knew it wasn't a grand gesture, but he wanted to show her that he was serious about making things right between them. Maya had agreed to meet him, though she hadn't mentioned what she was thinking. She wasn't sure if this dinner would be a turning point or just another moment in time, one that they could look back on with regret. When Maya arrived, Ryan stood up from the table, his expression softening when he saw her. She was dressed simply, yet beautifully, and the way she walked toward him made his heart skip a beat. Maya was still wary, but there was a quiet grace about her that Ryan couldn't help but admire. They sat down, and the waiter took their order, but neither of them seemed to be able to focus on the menu. Instead, they sat in a comfortable silence, both unsure of what to say next. Finally, it was Maya who broke the silence. "You've been different lately," she said, her voice calm but with an edge of curiosity. "More present, I guess." Ryan looked at her, surprised. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" Maya smiled faintly, her eyes softening. "A good thing, I think. It's just, I'm still getting used to this. To you, to us." Ryan's heart clenched. He knew that Maya was being cautious, and rightfully so. He had hurt her deeply, and now every step they took toward rebuilding their connection felt fragile. But hearing her acknowledge that things were changing slowly, but surely gave him hope. "I want to be better, Maya," he said softly. "I want to be the man you deserve. The man who doesn't hide behind walls or pretend to be something he's not." Maya's smile faltered for a moment, and Ryan could see the vulnerability in her eyes. "I just need time," she said quietly. "I can't promise anything, but I'm willing to try." Ryan nodded, understanding. "I'll wait. However long it takes." After dinner, they walked along the city streets, the night air cool against their skin. The city was alive, with lights and laughter spilling out from cafes and bars. But it felt as if time had slowed down for just the two of them. There were no walls, no masks. Just Ryan and Maya, walking side by side, trying to find their way back to each other. They stopped by a small park, where a fountain gurgled softly in the background. Ryan turned to Maya, his heart pounding in his chest. "Maya, I know I've made mistakes, and I can't undo them. But I want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this work. Because I don't want to lose you." Maya stood still, her eyes searching his face as if trying to find the truth in his words. She had been burned before by men who said all the right things, only to disappoint her in the end. But something about Ryan's sincerity made her believe that maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth. "I don't know what the future holds, Ryan," Maya said quietly, her voice steady. "But I know I can't keep living in the past. I want to believe in us, but I need to be sure you're not just playing games." Ryan stepped closer, his hand gently brushing hers. "I'm not playing games, Maya, I swear." For a moment, they stood there, just looking at each other. There was no need for grand declarations or promises of forever. They both knew that their relationship, whatever it was, would take time to rebuild. But in that moment, they both felt a glimmer of hope, a spark of something real that neither of them could ignore. The following weeks saw Ryan and Maya navigating the complexities of their new relationship. Ryan had stopped pretending, and Maya had slowly started to open up again. They spent time together, sometimes just talking, sometimes enjoying simple activities like walking through the park or grabbing coffee at their favorite cafe. They were taking it slow, but the connection between them was undeniable. Maya had her moments of doubt. She would question whether this was the right decision, whether she was making herself vulnerable again only to get hurt. But every time Ryan looked at her with those sincere eyes, she couldn't help but believe in him. She couldn't help but believe that maybe this time things would be different. Ryan too struggled with his own fears. He had always prided himself on being in control, on having everything figured out. But with Maya, he was learning that love didn't follow a script. It wasn't about controlling every outcome, it was about trust, patience, and being willing to face his own flaws. One evening, as they sat together in Ryan's apartment, Maya turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly, pretending to be someone you're not. Ryan looked at her, his heart full of emotion. "Every day," he said honestly. "But I don't regret the lessons I've learned. I don't regret meeting you." Maya smiled, her eyes softening. "I'm glad you finally let me in." Ryan reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm glad you gave me a chance." As the days passed, Ryan and Maya's bond seemed to grow stronger. They were slowly rebuilding their trust, brick by brick, one honest conversation at a time. Ryan had never felt more vulnerable, and for once it felt like a relief. He had spent so much of his life guarding his emotions, protecting himself from the possibility of rejection. But with Maya, he began to feel like maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to keep up the act. Maya, on the other hand, found herself slowly letting her guard down. It was difficult, but she knew she had to take risks in order to find something real. Ryan was still an enigma, and she couldn't fully trust him just yet. But she was beginning to believe in the possibility of something better than what she had before. However, as they continued to grow closer, something unexpected happened, something neither of them could have anticipated. A complication arose that would test their faith in each other and their ability to rebuild what had once been broken. It started with a phone call from Ryan's pastor call that would change everything. "Ryan, it's Carla," the voice on the other end of the line said, cold and formal. Ryan stiffened as soon as he heard her name. Carla was an ex-girlfriend, someone from his past who had never truly disappeared, even though he had tried to distance himself from her years ago. "Carla, what's going on?" Ryan's voice was guarded, a hint of frustration seeping through. "I need to talk to you," Carla said, her voice laced with something Ryan couldn't quite place. Was it desperation? Or was it something more? Maya had been sitting on the couch when Ryan took the call. She watched him intently, sensing the shift in his demeanor. He had become stiff, his expression closed off, and she could tell something was wrong. Ryan ended the call, his hand trembling slightly as he set the phone down. "Who was that?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice neutral, though a surge of unease was rising inside her. Ryan hesitated. For a moment, he considered telling Maya the truth about Carla and their history. But then an old feeling crept in, one he thought he had long buried, the fear of losing Maya. He wasn't sure how she would react if she knew about Carla. If she knew about the unresolved past that he had tried to leave behind. It was a former acquaintance, Ryan said, his words evasive. Maya's brows furrowed, and she could feel the walls going up again. Ryan had been open with her so far, but now it seemed like he was retreating into his old habits. I don't want to keep secrets from you, Maya, Ryan said, trying to reassure her. But Carla and we had a complicated relationship. I just don't want to drag it up again. Maya stood up slowly, her eyes fixed on Ryan. Ryan, she said softly, but with a firmness that made him tense. I told you I wanted honesty. If you can't be upfront with me about this, then I don't know where we stand. Ryan sighed heavily, the weight of his past hanging on his shoulders. I understand. I'll tell you everything, I promise. But not now, okay? I just need a little time to figure this out. For the next few days. Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Ryan's behavior had shifted again, and she could sense the tension in the air whenever they were together. It wasn't just the call from Carla, it was the way Ryan seemed to distance himself from her. The walls that he had slowly let down were being built back up, and Maya wasn't sure how much more of this she could take. Ryan knew he needed to be open with her, but every time he thought about telling her about Carla, his mind froze. He didn't want to lose her, not after everything they had been through, but he also knew that secrets had a way of coming to light, and eventually the truth would catch up with him. One evening, as they sat across from each other at dinner, Maya finally broke the silence. Ryan, she said, her voice quiet but determined, I need to know what's going on. You've been distant for days now, and I don't know if I can keep doing this. If you can't be honest with me, then I don't think I can be in this relationship anymore. Ryan looked at her, his heart heavy with guilt. He knew this was the moment he couldn't keep hiding the truth from her. I'm sorry, Maya, he said, his voice filled with regret. I should have told you everything earlier. Maya waited, her eyes locked on his, willing him to open up. It's Carla, Ryan continued, his words coming out in a rush. She's from my past. I know I shouldn't have kept it from you, but I didn't know how to explain it. I thought if I just moved on, everything would be fine. But she's been reaching out to me, and I've been trying to avoid her. But the truth is, I've never fully let go of her. Maya's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't what she had expected. She had known that Ryan had a past, but hearing him admit that he hadn't fully let go of it, especially after everything they'd been through, hurt more than she could have imagined. I didn't think you would understand, Ryan said, his voice shaking slightly. I didn't want to hurt you. Maya looked down at her plate, her emotions swirling inside her. She felt betrayed, not because Ryan had a past, but because he hadn't trusted her enough to share it. She had trusted him, opened her heart to him, and now she was questioning if she had been blind to his unresolved feelings. I need some time. Ryan, Maya said quietly, her voice filled with emotion. I need to think about this. I don't know if I can keep doing this. Not when you've kept things from me. Ryan's heart dropped as he watched her stand up and walk away. He had hurt her again, and he didn't know if he could fix it this time. The days following the confrontation felt like a blur for Ryan. Maya had walked away, leaving him with nothing but regret. He had finally opened up about his past, but in doing so, he had pushed her away even further. He could feel the distance between them growing with every passing minute, and it was a distance that he wasn't sure he could cross. Ryan had spent years building walls around himself. Walls that were designed to keep people out, to protect him from getting hurt. But now, with Maya, those walls felt more like a prison. Every time he thought about her, about the connection they had started to build, he felt a pang of longing in his chest. He didn't want to lose her, but he wasn't sure how to prove to her that he was truly ready to change. Maya, meanwhile, was struggling with her own emotions. She had walked away from Ryan, but the pain of it hadn't gone away. Every time she thought about him, she remembered the vulnerability in his eyes when he admitted that he hadn't fully let go of his past. But there was something else, too. She remembered the man who had tried to open up to her, the man who had promised to change. It wasn't just about his past. It was about whether or not she could believe in his future. It was a week later when Ryan finally reached out to Maya. He had been thinking about her constantly, trying to figure out what to say, how to make things right. He knew he had messed up, but he also knew that he couldn't let her go without trying one last time. He sent her a message, simple but sincere. Maya, I know I've hurt you. I can't undo the past, but I'm ready to show you that I can be the man you deserve. If you'll give me the chance, I'd like to talk. Maya read the message, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. She had been avoiding him, trying to push him out of her mind. But every time she thought she was moving on, she found herself thinking about him again. She wasn't sure if she could trust him again, but a part of her still wanted to believe that he could change. After a long moment, she replied, "Okay, let's meet." Ryan's heart skipped a beat when he saw Maya's reply. He didn't expect her to say yes, but he was grateful that she was willing to give him another chance. They agreed to meet at the same park where they had first had an honest conversation, the same place where everything had started to shift between them. It felt like the right place to begin again. When Ryan arrived, he saw Maya sitting on a bench, her posture tense but calm. She looked as beautiful as ever, but there was a sadness in her eyes that made Ryan's heart ache. He walked toward her slowly, unsure of how to begin. "Maya," he said softly, taking a seat beside her, "I've been thinking about everything you said, about trust, about honesty, and I know I've failed you in so many ways." Maya didn't look at him right away. She stared ahead, her arms crossed over her chest. "Ryan," she said, her voice low but steady, "I'm not sure what to say anymore. You've hurt me more than I thought was possible. You've lied to me, you've tested me, and I don't know if I can forgive you for that." Ryan swallowed, feeling the sting of her words, but he didn't back down. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, Maya, but I need you to know that I'm not the same man I was when we first met. I was afraid of losing control, afraid of letting someone in. But now I realize that I've been pushing away the one person who actually sees me for who I am." Maya turned to look at him then, her eyes searching his face. "And what is that, Ryan? Who are you really?" Ryan took a deep breath. "I'm a man who made mistakes, who hurt the person I care about the most. But I'm also someone who is willing to change, to be better, for you." For us, Maya looked away for a moment, her thoughts swirling. She wanted to believe him, she really did, but the fear of being hurt again was too strong. She couldn't let her guard down so easily, not after everything they had been through. "I don't know, Ryan," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "I want to believe that you're telling the truth, but it's hard. It's so hard. I need more than just words. I need to see action." Ryan nodded. "I understand. I'm not asking for you to trust me right now. But I want to show you that I can be the man you deserve. I'll prove it to you, Maya. I'll show you that I'm here for the right reasons. Not because of what I have, but because of who I am with you." Maya remained silent for a few moments, her heart torn. She had seen Ryan at his worst, but this was different. He was being honest, vulnerable, and for the first time in a long time, Maya felt like maybe, just maybe, she could trust him again. "Okay," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll give you a chance, but you have to show me, Ryan. I need to see that you're willing to put in the effort, not just for me, but for yourself too." Ryan's heart soared. It wasn't a complete forgiveness, but it was a start. "I will, Maya, I promise." The next few weeks were filled with small steps, slow, steady progress. Ryan was determined to prove himself to Maya, not through grand gestures or empty promises, but through the small, everyday things that showed his sincerity. He became more present in her life, sharing more of himself with her, being honest about his fears and his flaws. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of doubt. But every time Maya saw him trying, she felt her heart soften just a little more. Maya, in turn, began to let her guard down. She had been hurt before, and it was difficult to trust Ryan again, but she could see the change in him. She could feel the sincerity in his actions, and little by little, she started to believe that maybe they could build something real. One evening, after a quiet dinner at her apartment, Ryan looked at Maya with a warmth in his eyes that made her heart race. "Maya, I know it's been a long road, but I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. For you. For us." Maya smiled softly, her eyes brimming with emotion. "I believe you, Ryan. I really do." And in that moment, both of them knew there was still a long way to go, but they were on the right path. Together. Weeks passed, and Ryan felt like he was slowly regaining what he had almost lost: Maya's trust, her affection, her belief in him. They had been taking things slow, spending more time together, and doing the little things that built a foundation. For the first time in his life, Ryan didn't feel the need to control everything. He let go of the past and allowed himself to be vulnerable. And Maya, despite her fears and reservations, was starting to believe in the man Ryan had become. But as with every great love story, the real test was never far behind. It was a cold Friday evening when everything changed. Ryan had just finished a business deal, one that had the potential to launch Carter Tech into a new era of success. He was on top of the world, feeling confident, almost invincible. After weeks of hard work, this was the reward, the payoff. He was about to meet Maya for dinner, ready to share the good news with her. When his phone rang, it was Carla. Ryan hesitated for a moment, but then he picked up the call. "Ryan," Carla's voice echoed through the line. "We need to talk." He could feel his chest tighten. He had been avoiding her calls for weeks, trying to put the past behind him. But Carla wouldn't go away. She never did. She had always been a part of his life, a chapter that he wasn't sure he was ready to close. "I don't want to talk to you, Carla," Ryan said firmly. "We're done. You've crossed the line." But Carla wouldn't relent. "You don't get it, do you? I'm pregnant, Ryan." The words hit Ryan like a punch to the gut. His heart raced, his mind spinning. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. "You're what?" Ryan asked, his voice shaky, disbelief in every syllable. "I'm pregnant, and you're the father." Ryan stood frozen in place, the world around him suddenly turning cold. The room felt smaller, his thoughts scattered. What was he supposed to do? How was he supposed to handle this? His life with Maya, the future they were building together, it all felt like it was slipping through his fingers. I need you to make a decision. Ryan, Carla continued. Either you stand by me, or you walk away from everything. Ryan felt the weight of the moment. His mind raced, but his heart was already racing for another reason. He couldn't ignore Maya, not now. Not when everything he had ever wanted was right in front of him. I'll handle it, Ryan said. His voice low, the weight of the decision settling in. But I need to tell Maya. When Ryan met Maya that evening, he was a different man. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by a storm of confusion and guilt. Maya immediately noticed the change in his demeanor, the way he seemed distant, preoccupied. Ryan, Maya asked, her voice filled with concern. What's wrong? Ryan looked at her, his chest tightening as he saw the woman he loved. The woman who had been so patient with him, so willing to trust him. He had everything to lose now. Everything, Maya. He began. But the words caught in his throat. You don't have to say it if you're not ready, Maya said, reaching for his hand. But if you're keeping something from me, Ryan, I need to know. Ryan could feel his heart racing. It wasn't just the guilt. It was the fear of losing her. The one person he had learned to care about so deeply. I'm not sure how to tell you this, Ryan said quietly, his voice trembling with the weight of the truth. But Carla called me today. She's pregnant, Maya, and she says I'm the father. Maya's hand froze in his foot, the air between them suddenly feeling like it was filled with 1,000 unspoken words. Ryan watched as her expression shifted, first to shock, then to something he couldn't quite read. Is this really happening? Maya asked, her voice barely a whisper. Ryan nodded, the weight of the moment suffocating him. I don't know what to do, Maya. I never planned for this. I thought I was leaving that life behind, but now it's here, and I need to figure out what's next. Maya stood up, walking away from the table, her mind racing. She tried to breathe, tried to make sense of everything that had just been thrown at her. She had always known that Ryan had a complicated past, but this was something entirely different. Ryan watched her walk away, his heart sinking. He had just lost everything he had worked so hard to build with her. Maya had trusted him, and he had failed her again. He had been afraid of losing control, of letting someone in. And now it seemed like the universe was giving him the final test, one that he wasn't sure he could pass. Maya stopped at the window, staring out at the city lights, her hands trembling. She felt like she was suffocating. She had invested so much into this relationship, into trusting Ryan. She had been patient, understanding, but this was a betrayal that she wasn't sure she could forgive. Ryan, she said softly, her voice tinged with sadness. I don't know if I can do this. I can't compete with your past, not like this. Ryan's heart broke. Maya, you're not competing. I know, she interrupted, shaking her head. I need to know where I stand, Ryan. I need to know if I can trust you. If you're really ready to be with me. Ryan stepped forward, reaching for her hand. But she pulled away. I can't give you an answer right now, Maya said quietly, her voice filled with pain. I need time to think. Ryan left the restaurant feeling more alone than he had in years. The weight of his past, the choices he had made, the lies he had told was now consuming him. He had risked everything for Maya, and now he was facing the consequences. But in his heart, he knew one thing. He couldn't let her go. Not like this. Maya's absence hung over Ryan like a dark cloud. It had been a week since their last meeting, and though he tried to focus on work, his thoughts were consumed by her. He hadn't stopped thinking about the pain in her eyes when he told her about Carla every night. He replayed their conversation in his head, wondering if he could have done things differently, if he could have been more honest with her from the start. But honesty, Ryan realized, was something he had never been good at. Not just with Maya, but with himself. He had spent so much time hiding behind his success, his money, his company, that he had never truly faced who he was or what he wanted. He had always thought that if he could just control everything, he would be happy. But now, with Maya out of his life, he realized that control had never brought him happiness. It was only in his moments of vulnerability with her that he had felt something real. Ryan knew he had to fix things. He couldn't live with the regret of not trying, of not fighting for what he truly wanted. Maya, on the other hand, had spent the last week trying to find clarity. The confusion and heartbreak she had felt after Ryan's confession had left her with a whirlwind of emotions. She cared about him deeply, but the trust they had been building was fragile. Could she truly forgive him? Could she accept the fact that his past was so much more complicated than she had imagined? She had taken time away from him, needing to think things through, but deep down, Maya knew she couldn't ignore the truth. She had always believed in the power of love, in the idea that two people could grow and change together. But Ryan had hurt her. He had lied. He had tested her. And now she had to decide if she could move past that. It was a rainy Thursday evening when Ryan called her again. He had been waiting for the right moment, and now he knew he had no more time to waste. Maya, his voice came through the phone, quiet but urgent. I can't keep living in limbo. I know I've hurt you, and I can't take that back. But I want to fix this. I want to prove to you that I'm not the man I was before. I need to make things right for us. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. She had been avoiding his calls, avoiding thinking about him. But hearing his voice again sincere, made her realize that she hadn't moved on either. I don't know if I can do this. Ryan, Maya replied, her voice shaky. I don't know if I can just forget everything. You're asking me to trust you again, but trust. Trust is hard to rebuild. I'm not asking for you to forgive me overnight, Ryan said quickly. I know it won't be easy. But if you're willing to give me one last chance, I'll spend every day proving to you that I can be the man you deserve. I'll prove that I can be honest, not just with you, but with myself. No more lies. Maya paused for a moment, her mind racing. She could feel her walls starting to crack. She had tried to keep them up, but the truth was, she still cared about him. She wanted to believe that Ryan had changed, that he was capable of being the man he said he could be. I need you to meet me, Maya said, her voice soft but steady. I need to see you, Ryan, to talk. Ryan let out a breath of relief. I'll be there. Anywhere, anytime. I'm ready. The following evening, Maya met Ryan at a small park near the city. The rain had finally stopped, and the world felt fresh and new, just like the hope she felt stirring in her chest. She wasn't sure if they could make it work. She wasn't sure if she could ever fully trust him again. But she knew one thing she had to try. When Ryan arrived, he was no longer the man who had lied, the man who had tested her. He was someone different, someone who had been through his own internal struggle, someone who had learned that love wasn't about control. but about vulnerability and trust. Maya stood waiting for him, her heart pounding as he approached. He looked at her with such tenderness, and for the first time in a long while, Maya didn't feel like she was fighting a battle. She wasn't fighting him. She was fighting the fear that had held her back for so long. "Ryan," she said softly, "I'm scared." He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I am too, Maya. But I want to face that fear with you. I know I've hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to be with you. I want to build something real." Maya looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. She saw the sincerity there, the raw honesty in his gaze. And in that moment, she realized something. Ryan wasn't perfect, and neither was she. But together, they could be enough. "I want to believe in us," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to try again. I'm just ... scared." Ryan gently cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away a tear that had fallen. "I know, Maya, I'm scared too. But I promise you this: if you give me the chance, I'll be here every step of the way. I'll prove to you that I can be the man you deserve." They stood there, in the quiet of the park, the air filled with the weight of unspoken promises. Ryan leaned in, and for the first time in months, Maya let herself fall into his embrace. The world around them didn't matter anymore. It was just the two of them, standing on the edge of something new, something fragile but beautiful as they kissed. Maya felt a sense of peace settle in her chest. Maybe they didn't have all the answers. Maybe the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. But for the first time in a long time, she believed in the possibility of forever. Together,